इंडिया का वाइडेस्ट नेटवर्क।
बिगेस्ट नेटवर्क, ये तो सब कहते हैं राइट।
लेकिन इससे हमारा क्या फायदा?
मेरी लाइफ इजी कैसे होगी?
वी हियर यू। इसीलिए आपकी लाइफ आसान करने एयरटेल वो करता है जो किसी के लिए आसान नहीं। हम आपसे कुछ नहीं छुपाते, खबर अच्छी हो या बुरी, हाँ बुरी भी हम साफ साफ बताते हैं, ताकि आपकी लाइफ में रुकावट ना आए।
चलो जी।
इंडिया का बेस्ट नेटवर्क आप डिसाइड करना, हम रोज बेहतर बनने की कोशिश करेंगे।
Customers from across India and the world have been leaning on us for over 75 years. Blue Star, built on trust.
जब चलेंगे हम, बढ़ेंगे हम, चलेगा हिंदुस्तान, चलेगा हिंदुस्तान, बनेगी नई पहचान। NBC bearings, NBC bearings।
इस बदलते भारत की आत्मनिर्भर पहचान NBC बेयरिंग्स, लीडिंग बेयरिंग मैन्युफैक्चरर और एक्सपोर्टर, मेड इन इंडिया, मेड फॉर द वर्ल्ड, और CK बिरला ग्रुप कंपनी।
Do you know when trade is at its best? It's when you never have to think about it. When it's so convenient that it almost feels invisible. Trade is at its best when it makes getting something, no matter how big or small, from one place to another, feel like handing it over with your own hands. Making the world flow better. A way to make another country feel like next door. To make a stranger feel like a neighbor. To change what's possible for everyone. For us, trade isn't about running ports. It's about opening portals. Portals to millions of people, but also to a better future.
What is care all about? An endearing smile, a soothing touch, or perhaps the comforting reassurance of an honest commitment? At Polymed, for years, our commitment to provide the highest quality healthcare to mankind has run deeply through all aspects of our ideology, decisions, and work. Care, concern, and love for humanity. Polymed was established in 1995 and started manufacturing operations in 1997 with a vision of providing the highest quality of healthcare to mankind. Since inception, Polymed has been on an ever-expanding journey of achievements, marking key milestones year after year. Our values of integrity, care, ownership, learning and inclusivity puts us in a dominant position in the healthcare industry. Polymed as a brand is committed to continually evolve and innovate products that are proven, safe and sustainable. Our innovations are focused not only on creating value today, but also to prepare healthcare for a better tomorrow. Our varied specialities include infusion therapy, vascular access, dialysis, respiratory care, urology, blood management, oncology, gastroenterology, blood collection system, surgery and wound management, and anesthesia. While our technologies are truly state-of-the-art, our business model is state-of-the-heart.
Polymed is now moving towards its new orbit of bringing more products which are close to clinicians, healthcare practitioners.
Our acquisition of Plan One Health, a leading Italian medical devices company, has further allowed us to expand our horizons, adding focus to in-depth R&D for making highly specialized systems. We are proud to say that today, Polymed is one of the leading manufacturers of infusion products in the world, exporting to an array of over 110 countries. We are Polymed, and we care for you. Our drive comes from our compassion for saving lives and building a healthier society, a happier society. Polymed. We care as we cure.
ठीक है, टाइल्स आपको तो वर्ल्ड फेमस फ्लोरिंग लगाना चाहिए। आखिर आपका स्टाइल वर्ल्ड फेमस है। ऐसे इटालियन मार्बल, इंग्लिश ओक फ्लोरिंग, एग्जैक्टली।
सोमानी टाइल्स में ये सब फिनिश है, और जैसे कि मेरा वर्ल्ड फेमस स्टाइल देसी है, ऐसे ही है सोमानी टाइल। स्टाइल और क्वालिटी वर्ल्ड क्लास, पर जमीन से जुड़ा।
एक आइडिया है, आपको ना सोमानी टाइल्स लगानी चाहिए।
गुड आइडिया। सोमानी टाइल्स, जमीन से जुड़े।
शर्मा जी, हाँ, कश्मीर घूमने चलोगे? कश्मीर जरूर, पर सिर्फ 2 दिन के लिए।
भाई शर्मा जी, इस बार कॉन्फ्रेंस न्यूयॉर्क में रखें?
जी सर, पर सिर्फ 2 दिन के लिए।
शर्मा जी, अरोड़ा साहब की बेटी की शादी है बैंकॉक में।
हाँ।
हम सबको चलना है।
क्यों नहीं, पर सिर्फ 2 दिन के।
2 दिन में जब हो जाए घर की ऐसी की तैसी, तभी तो बाहर नहीं जाते बेचारे शर्मा जी। कोई इन्हें समझाए, घर में फिनेस्टा लगवाएं। रेन वाटर, सीपेज, डस्ट, पोल्यूशन और नॉइज से हमेशा के लिए छुटकारा पाएं, क्योंकि फिनेस्टा कीप्स द आउटसाइड आउटसाइड फॉरएवर।
यार, इस बार कहीं लंबी छुट्टी के लिए चले?
Finesta, India's #1 windows and doors brand.
There's a gush of wind that hums a sweet song. There's a gush of wind that fights like a hero to fill the world with possibility. There's a gush of wind that jumps across oceans and mountains, embracing the entire planet. There's a gush of wind that blows away darkness. There's a gush of wind that blows for humanity. Because at Hero, we care. Being a hero is all about heart. It's not about ruling the world. It's about owning it. It's not about winning a race. It's about delivering a smile to the human race. It's about a spirit that just cannot be confined by geographies. It's about the heart that beats for the future and a soul that echoes the values of generations. And yet, being a hero is never about the hero. It's about the millions who celebrate them. Hero Motorcorp, the motorcycle leader.
Innovation. One word that best describes us. It's what we do. It's who we are. To begin with, let's go back 100 years. 1911, we began our journey as a bus service. It's said that people of Madurai set the time to the clockwork precision of our buses. 1960, we start auto component manufacturing. 1978, we get into two-wheeler manufacturing. Today, we are India's largest automobile components manufacturer and distributor. A $7 billion group with 97 companies across industries. We are obsessed with automobile innovation. You could say we are like the automobiles we make. Quite like automobiles need fuel, we are fueled by a passion for customers. Today, we have more than 28+ million satisfied customers the world over. Their demands take shape in our 4 state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities, all meticulously designed to meet the highest quality standards. our suppliers imbibe our production standards to deliver world-class quality. Our advanced IT systems are the best the world has to offer. This seamless integration of cutting-edge systems enables us to roll out over 2 million vehicles every year. Quite like an engine powers an automobile, we are powered by a workforce united by values. The philosophy of total employee involvement, TEI, ensures key processes such as Kaizen and recurrence prevention are inculcated in every individual. The extensive training programs integrate technical education with our values. They go beyond processes and empower all our employees for innovation. Bearing testimony to this are our 600+ global patents. Quite like suspensions adapt to different terrains, our robust network and distribution systems have earned the trust of diverse global markets.
Yes, please.
So if all are logged in, we can start.
We can start, CB. Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very, very special session, if I may say, which is the topic of the session is the topic of the conference, which is being future ready. And this is the first time that we are doing a conference which is a business summit on being future ready. And it's a great honor and a great privilege and a pleasure to have Mr. Sunil Bharti Mittal, the chairman of Bharti Enterprises, to come and accept this invitation and join us for this session, albeit virtually. And he's doing this from London in spite of all his travels. And today, actually, my job is not to introduce, because Mr. Sunil Bharti Mittal does not really need an introduction, but to just welcome and thank him for his presence. He's always been graceful, I must say, when we request him to attend some of our, speak at some of our annual summits, and he's always shared his thoughts, his vision, his inputs with us every time that we have turned to him. And besides, of course, being such a doyen, he has also led CII as a president many years back. That was 2007-8, and he brought in some very important features, or rather priorities, or rather, in fact, streams of work into our fold. One was, I remember him really giving a huge focus on education, skill development those days, affirmative action, employment, and other people-centric areas, which were of very high priorities to him, besides, of course, growth and development. And of course, some of the missions that he led across the globe were of huge value for Indian industry and for India. And I must also add that it was the 60 years of India's independence, and it was during his term that we began the journey of India at 75 today, which we are all celebrating. So that's his CII Connect, which I really wanted to bring in and really welcome him and thank him. We all know about his huge achievements and the lots that he has done for Indian industry, for society, for India. And we have another great person in Rajiv Ramani, who would lead the discussions and be in conversation with him for the next half an hour to 40 minutes. So with that, once again, a very warm welcome and thank you very much for accepting this invitation. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thanks a lot, CV. Thank you so much. Excellent introduction to Sunil. Let me add my welcome, Sunil. Always great to have a conversation with you, to interact with you. There's always so much to learn. So I'll jump into what's a very interesting topic of being future ready, which at least Sunil, from my perspective, is really to how we deal with the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead of us as organizations, as individuals, as society. And the thing which is really interesting as you look at this is that, you know, even pre-COVID, this entire technology changes, ESG changes were becoming very imminent. And then COVID came, almost everything came to a standstill. But technology went on steroids, the entire digital transformation, technology transformation. And as we went out of that, you had, you know, monetary policy, which was at its extreme. You had supply chains that were disrupted, and we had, you know, early signs of inflation. And then you had the Ukraine Russia war, and, you know, inflation, stagflation, supply chain disruptions of a different order. And the reason I say this is because being future ready, I guess, is always important. But before I set the stage for you, I think it's probably even more important today than it's been ever before, because we're just living in times of massive change. So with that, Sunil, I'll just hand it over to you, maybe some introductory remarks on how you see being future ready, and how do organizations prepare themselves to be future ready.
Thank you, Rajiv, and I'm delighted to join the session with you. But importantly, thank you, CP, for your introduction. For me, my time with CII and very intimate 1 year in 2007-8 is fondly cherished and remembered. And I did when I take a responsibility, I take it with all sincerity. And it was quite a transformative year for India, for CII. And thanks for sort of reliving those moments of India at 60. We did in New York a massive campaign, and many other issues. And in fact, CI probably doesn't get enough credit, but the Indo-US civil nuclear deal, I think CI played a great role. I mean, I personally traveled 3 or 4 times to the US at very short notices, and what CI did for India's effort on the nuclear deal is absolutely transformational, and I know that the government has recognized it at several quarters. So with that, let me turn to Rajiv for what he mentioned about being future ready, which is also the theme of CI's annual session this year. We as entrepreneurs are fairly well trained to look at things that come out of the blue. We have had several shocks, developing our businesses. Most entrepreneurs are well trained and have a strong, muscle build up to deal with situations. But last, I would say 2 or 3 years have been unbelievably relentless in, changes that have been thrown at the industry, at nation states, at individuals. And we could have never planned for this. When the COVID hit us, at least it appeared it'll go away in a few weeks and a few months, and then it took nearly 2 years and still continues to disrupt many parts of the world from time to time. China, for example, today is in the throes of the COVID lockdown of levels that have never been experienced anywhere in the world. I mean, a complete shutdown of Shanghai and many other supply chain centers would have sent massive shocks in the supply chain around the globe. So we still keep on living that. Then the Ukraine-Russia war was just bolt out of the blue. One could have never planned. I personally suffered on account of that in our new satellite project. So I would say the organizations of future, or the organizations that have sustainable characteristics in themselves, are the ones which are almost always ready to deal with challenges. So what are some salient features that are required for sudden attacks on the ecosystem, as opposed to technology shifting trends or slow moving issues that come up? Inflation is rising. We all know it's coming. Things are going to happen. So you start to prepare yourself. We know China's situation started to harden for India's supply chain in the last several years. many people started to look at moving their supply chains out of China. Haven't been able to get anywhere close to where we should be, but they started to plan it. But in situations like a COVID or a pandemic or a war is where I think the resilience of any organization gets tested. And I must say, India in a large measure has done exceedingly well because most of the companies are agile, have been able to move their supply chains, have been able to step up their production when required. Companies like ourselves who are in the digital world could move massive amounts of traffic almost overnight from commercial centers to residential centers. Sometimes at the cost of human lives, people running on the streets, fixing cables, fixing towers, moving all the traffic that was required to be done from urban to rural, from commercial centers to homes. So you have done remarkably well, I would say, in every segment of our industry. That's why India today is looking like a place where business is still thriving. Results are coming through, which are stellar results, year after year, quarter after quarter during this period of time. Yet there will be casualties. Rajiv, you are very close to many of the organizations. You would see this from closer quarter. We are seeing kind of disconnect between two levels of entrepreneurship or performance, largely on the back of scale and size. Those who have large scale, size, have the monies to put technology at work, have been able to deal with this issue very, very well, I would say, especially in India and many other parts of the world. Companies which are in medium to lower end of businesses in terms of size and scale have definitely suffered, and people who are at the bottom end have suffered in the business area the most. The Western world, of course, could come up with amounts of monies to be given as offset of salaries up to a particular level. Many other allowances, rates and taxes were waived off in Europe. The US was giving tremendous amount of support. Countries like India, which have large population and doesn't have the balance sheet to support doles and subsidies directly in the hands of our population beyond a point, did have issues where the lower end of the society has suffered. And that's where I would say the CII and many other organizations need to come hand in hand with the government to see how do we support our small, medium, micro enterprises to also deal with the sudden shifts and changes that are there. But if you ask me, by and large, Rajiv, the scorecard for India is absolutely fantastic. And it will stay the course. Inflation is high. Interest rates will harden. We all know that. But I think if there's any country that is well poised and positioned to deal with these tectonic shifts, it is indeed India. Last thing I would add to this is to set the stage. I think every crisis offers opportunity. As Ram Emanuel once said, you never let a crisis go to waste. I think India is, I would say, because of its strong leadership, embracing that thought extremely well. China supply chain issues, China hostility in general, Ukraine-Russia war, India being dependent on Russian technology in the our weaponry, our weapon systems, all are now offering opportunities for us to build our own semiconductor businesses, manufacturing of defense products. And India in the next 10 to 12 years will see a dramatic upliftment in all these areas where it was left behind. And to my belief, I thought we will never be able to catch up. India missed the bus on electronic, both passive and active components, especially semiconductor race. And of course, we did not build our defense productions to a level where we could support ourselves and the world. That is changing, and that is changing very, very fast. And I think India, to my mind, in the next 10 years will have tremendous opportunities. So when we look back, hopefully we'll still be active, in our businesses, that this could have been a very important inflection point for India when things looked bad, but India took advantage of these changes and stepped up the game and doubled down in the area of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Digital India, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Sunil. I think these are great points, and I completely share the optimism in a pretty volatile environment around. There is reason to be optimistic in India with where things are. Just changing track a little bit. You talked about size and scale. You talked about technology being important. I just want to say, from your standpoint, when you look at purpose, people, culture, organization structure, speed of decision making, in Bharti or in the organizations that you're closely involved with, to deal with the changes, has some of that changed in the world that we are living in, whether it's the great resignation, whether it's the speed at which one has to act? So just wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think then this is again a very, very good, important point, and many of the companies get it right, and unfortunately, many don't. And I would say it's always horses for the courses. One culture does not fit all. My culture of my organizations across, I mean, wherever I have the chance to lead our businesses, have a very different culture than many others. And many a times, as a student of business structures, organization structures, I have deeply studied. Both somehow bring absolutely stunning results. So you see companies which have command and control. I wouldn't name any. Many of us know how it works. Very strongly family-oriented businesses where they are patriarchs, run their companies with very heavy hand, and they believe that they are the owners and they must command the ship and everybody must listen to them. Outstanding successes. Equally, there are distributed leadership models like our own company and many others. MNCs are a classic example. They churn out great successes. So if you really look at it from the point of view, you must have a culture that works and then nourish it. When you mix and match cultures, when you try to strap on a culture from outside, that doesn't work. I mean, I can tell you about Airtel. If you get somebody from a command and control background, they come and just don't make it. They never make it. Equally, I have seen many of my very, very high caliber people going from my company to command and control. And within weeks, my SMS inbox starts to get filled up, made a mistake, want to come back. Some have been brought back, some we couldn't accommodate. But the fact is, it is inevitable that no amount of money can mitigate the cultural mishmash that sometimes companies get into. Take the classic case of Vodafone Idea. Largest network in the country, largest fiber network in the country, largest market share at 42% when they were merging. And Vodafone is a storied telecom company. Everybody knows about it. They know the business. Birla is a very powerful, large business Indian enterprise rooted in India. So it should have been a fabulous combination of two very large companies coming together and continuing to stay the course and be number one. I said one thing on that. I said, this will not work. I should not say that it should fail, not work, because you have two very, very different cultures being put together. That is not going to work. And that's precisely what happened in that company. When you put together a very MNC open culture with a very different Indian honed into very strong financial result orientation coming together, it just did not work. And the fact is, Idea on its own used to perform significantly better in terms of its profitability, allocation of capital, return on capital. Sometimes even amazed us that they were doing better than us. So they were really very well focused. On the other hand, Vodafone had a very open culture like an MNC. And when it came together, it just did not work. So culture is very important, but what type of culture you don't prescribe. You just have one culture which works for you and irrigate and nourish that. In our case, in my company, right from day one, I was very deeply inspired by large MNCs who are my partners. I had the fortune of working with very, very large companies, AT&T, Siemens, a lot of Korean companies, Japanese companies in my very young days. And I learned from the grandmasters of organizational structures, which were high governance, open structures. It fascinated me, it inspired me, and that's what I did, in our system. And meritocracy is important. Politics is avoided. There's no command and control. Anybody can come and walk into my room, shake my collar, say, I don't agree with you. Let's have a debate. And the logic wins, not the hierarchy or the authority. And that's what thrives in an organization. So what my message would be, whatever culture you have, strengthen that, irrigate that. And that if it works for you, just stay with the course.
No, that's great, Sunil. And on people, is likewise, is Bharti having a different, in the last 4 or 5 years, strategy on people, kind of people that you want to hire? technology, the entire learning and development agenda around technology, is that also changing?
Oh, it is changing. It's a hard task. We are old school. We have this active debates. How do you bring in young, digital savvy, workforce into the company, which is very large, multi-billion-dollar company? How do you make them thrive? How can they be different from the rest of the large monolithic organization that one develops when you are large and big? And that's a challenge that not only my company, but every company in the world has faced. Some have done well. They are good examples. And I think we are now well on our way to be a company which is just not an old style telecom company, but a very powerful digital company which serves the needs beyond just connectivity. I mean, 40% of India's traffic now moves on Airtel. All of India's digital traffic, I'm counting 40% moves on Airtel pipes and networks. That's one business. But then we are also now doing stuff that was never tried by telecom companies before. Airtel Payments Bank is becoming a huge success. We have a communication platform as a service, CPaaS, which is coming out with products like IQ, where we are serving the enterprise customers. We have cloud and security systems in place. We are now adding surveillance to it. And from few dozen digital people working for Airtel, we have today just under 3,000 people in the digital group working under a very able leader. So that transformation is happening. We are protecting them. And what happens is when you get a good cohort of a particular type of talent, they start to attract more. So initially it's always difficult. Now it's become a place that if you want to choose a digital carrier, Airtel is a great place to be. It's just not narrative, but it's a big amount of work that is going on in the digital area as well. Getting people is getting harder. It's becoming more difficult. Talent out there has choices, especially in the new age startups, which are offering magical amounts of stocks and salaries. That becomes attractive. People are just working from wherever they are, complete remote working. So that's attractive to the Gen Next. So those challenges are there. Therefore, you have to make yourself really relevant and really attractive to get talent. Hard task, but thankfully, I think Airtel is and remains a very attractive place to work because it allows carriers to develop. It allows for agitating your ideas in a very friendly environment where you can grow and demonstrate your skill sets.
Yeah. So, and Sunil, having observed the changes in Airtel, I think that's very, very visible. If I go back, and I think I just request you to maybe reflect a little bit on the past 4-5 years of it. We had massive regulatory changes, regulatory fines that came through. You had a new player come in, Geo, that pretty much changed, I would say, significantly the landscape. The competitors, the number of players, the approach to market, and everything else. And if you reflect back on that journey, if I look at Airtel, and it went through its own set of challenges, but if I look at the revenue market share or overall market share, if you view market cap as a barometer of success, I think it's done very well in the last 3 years. I know you still probably are not happy with where it is, but I think that's gone down very well. So if you reflect on that journey and as you went through that, I think if you had, what were your learnings and insights? Because as compared to a lot of the other telecom companies, I think you went through the gruel, you took some hard decisions, and at least as I can see it, you've come out much stronger of that as compared to where you went into these issues. And the second piece is a little bit around the future. You briefly mentioned about it, but obviously around the world you're seeing different telecom companies obviously pivoting to digital rather than being dumb pipes. Talking a lot more about the customer connectivity because the number of people you connect with or the telcos connect with is huge. But you still see different strategies in the way you create your own platforms or you partner with an ecosystem of platforms, and also with some of the changes that are coming around financial services, payment banks, and others. So it'll be good to get your perspective on what you saw and what you experienced individually as an organization. And also going forward, how do you see as you get future ready for, you have taken one path, someone else has taken some other path, other people have taken different paths. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I mean, I think Bharti in general and Airtel in particular has been to my mind, a classic case study of how companies deal with the tectonic shifts in the marketplace, be that technology shifts, competitive environment, regulatory hits. I mean, I can't believe that there's anything that has not been dealt with by Airtel in terms of dealing with adversities. And yes, I mean, it's a delightful story at the end. But there were moments in the journey of Airtel when the question was not if, but it was when will they collapse. 2002 was 2002, 2003 was the first one, and we had this famous Agra summit. We have the summit every year, and there was a band of 35, 40 people. It was not a large organization. We had our existential crisis. Stock was listed, about a few months back, at 45 rupees. It was brought down to its knees at 19 rupees. Cash was running out. Revenues were not building fast enough, and we had taken a big bite of going all India in the mobile side. So we had taken license for the whole country. We had taken license in about 8 or 9 places for fixed line. We were laying our submarine cable and putting also fiber, India's first private sector fiber initiatives in the country. So the ship was clearly creaking. Every rivet was moving, and it looked like things could go wrong. And that is where one is reminded that if you have the right strategy in place, if you have the right technology in place, that will give you the right platform to win. But more important than that was, how do your people feel? Once the people start to panic at the leadership team level, then story gets over very, very fast, despite all the ingredients that you may have. I think I recognize one thing, that if we can keep our people motivated, if we can keep our mind positive, then we'll be able to get through. And that was to my mind, living with it, and therefore I experienced it and became a big fan of how an inspired leadership team and an inspired workforce makes all the difference. And I decided to travel the whole country. We were at that time operating in some places, but building in most of the places. And it was a day or day and a half in each of the states. India is divided into 22 circles, so call it all circles. I would spend the day reviewing the progress, either on operations or on project development. In the evening, sup with them, drink with them, dance with them, and off I go to the next place. Whichever place, whether it was Odisha or Bengal or Maharashtra and Pune and Bombay or Madhya Pradesh, I came out every time of a session at, we will make this. We'll make it happen. I can see. I was worried about the external factors. None of them were. And I said, if I can become the lightning rod of the organization, take all that, pain upon myself and keep the organization insulated, I think we will be able to win this big war that was going on. And the fact is, from that time, the 19 rupees stock ran to 1,200 rupees in a matter of 18 months. And that sort of gives you an idea of what happened in the company. Circle after circle was launched, became better. Competition started to fall and trip on its own program. Come 2008-9, 12 new licenses were given. Market went into mayhem. All the big players came in, both foreign and Indian, from Docomo to Telenor to everybody came in. And again, the market went through a huge cycle. We were better prepared. There's no question about it, because the competition was still big, but not brutal. So we managed that. 2016 was big and brutal. We got every hit, but this was the playbook of 2002, 2003. I had seen this whole crisis before. I was in the midst of it. Thankfully, I'm still around to lead it. So there was a very clear division between corporate office and Airtel office. You do your work, get onto the ground, do what you do best, serve the customer, build your networks, have the good quality of network serving the customer. We will take care of the balance sheet. We'll take care of the regulatory hits. And mind you, those hits were pretty brutal. $6.5 billion of fine coming out of the Supreme Court. I mean, this is not US, where you have a few $1 billion fine and you scoff it. This was a spine-breaking event for any company. Vodafone collapsed. They got $7.5 billion. We got $6.5 billion hit. And I still remember, I mean, you may have an insight to it. The auditors were finding it difficult to put their pen to the paper to make it a going concern. And that was an overnight battle that Akhil and all our financial people had to do pitch battle with the auditors. Thankfully, you are not the auditor for that year. And we managed to finally convince them that we'll be fine. But it was a very difficult event. And it came out of the blue. It was really, really, I wish we had lost this case in 2005-06. Just because we won the case, we never paid the money. And finally, when we lost it in Supreme Court, it came back to haunt us all the way back. So it was a backbreaking one. Spectrum auctions were other one, where your own spectrum, which was assured to you, will be renewed after 20 years for every 10 years, suddenly was changed to say, no renewal. You have built a beautiful building, which was guaranteed to you for 20 plus 10 years at a time with a particular fees. Stand out in the queue and auction back for your building. It's a very hard thing to do. Yeah. I mean, you have bought a plot of land and then you have built a $1 billion building and dressed it up well. You're thrown out and you're standing along with everybody else to bid for the same building from ground zero. It's hard. So you had to pay a ton of money to get back into your building, and we had to do that. So I think balance sheet had become stressed. And that was the time I said, you will have to dilute ourselves, to hell with it. This company needs to survive. How do I care whether I own 40% or 26%? Let's just go and raise capital. Easier said than done when a company is under crisis, when the company is going down, and you have a very, very, very powerful competitor and regulatory hits are coming left, right, and center. Who is going to give you the money? Who's going to put money into the company? Today, pardon me for saying it, Vodafone Idea, for the last 2 years has been saying we are raising money, nothing has come through. This is where governance, credibility of an organization, of individuals, or promoters count. I made 6 calls. The first 6 calls got me about $6 or $7 billion. Then I told my partners in Singapore, we need to do some rights issue. They said, go ahead. We did 2 rights issue, $2.5 billion, $3.5 billion. We made some strategic sales of towers in Africa. We made some tower stake sale in India. And we raised in the last 34 months, $18 billion and repaired our balance sheet. Today, Airtel's balance sheet is healthy, it's strong. And we are now down to 2.5 players for a country the size of India. So future looks good now. Now, will there be one more crisis many years going ahead? Who knows? But this company has become very, very strong and battle hardened. Some of the salient features have been focus on customer needs and customer satisfaction has been relentless. We have been very hard upon ourselves I'm the biggest critic of my own company. If this is not working well, this service is not okay. Many of us are, doing their job day and night. When I come for a dinner, you will corner me or somebody else will corner me. My phone does not work in my 3rd basement. Nowhere in the world it works, but it must work in India. And that's the expectation. And by the way, you only pay me $2 a month, not $50 a month like they pay in the US. So it's a hard task. But the company is well, I would say, structured and engineered to deal with this.
That's great. And going forward, Sunil, on the, we talked briefly on the platform side, on telecom being sort of much broader connectivity. And again, you look at different players, some building their own ecosystem, some leveraging on third-party ecosystem and everything else. What's your perspective on this?
Again, I go back to it. Large organizations are terrible for innovation. So who could have thought that telecom companies, which have been running their businesses for long years and had the right to win in every aspect that we see today, which has gone away from us, will blow it up. It's not Airtel. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Vodafone, Telefonica, name any company, nobody got it going. We were simply living on SMSs, comes WhatsApp, just takes the entire revenue of SMS, which was in billions of dollars around the globe. Gone, finished. So we couldn't do it. Why could we not develop a messaging platform? It's actually a piece of cake if you look back today. But it's a denial mode. You don't want to listen to new ideas. People say, now, where this is going to go. And I see this classically happening in the satellite industry. Now, the geo players who have had 2, 3, 4 satellites up in the space have been serving the globe, kept on saying LEOs have no future. We don't need to go to LEOs. And the fact is, geos are in existential crisis today because the whole industry has changed. So And you can keep on going, but Xerox and hundreds of other companies. So I would say to a very, very large degree, our companies have woken up very late. Trillions of dollars of valuations have transferred to the OTT players, whether it's the Facebook, whether it's the Googles. So these are the areas where it'll be very hard for you to go and compete now. E-commerce, and they all ride on us, by the way. We spend billions and they enjoy trillions of valuation. That's the equation here. So we have decided that we just can't let everything go out. We need to be serving and doing value added. Don't sell just wheat flour, but sell packaged bread now. So at least get to that level. You may not be able to do a gourmet dish in a restaurant, but at least get to a second level of value addition. So CPaaS, communication platform as a service. We have a lot of properties which are idle. We are doing advertising there now. Our advertising revenue is growing very, very strongly. Cloud, we are creating cloud for SMEs. Big people may not come to us. They may go to Google Cloud, Microsoft, Amazon, but there are lots of small, medium enterprises who we serve, and they will take our cloud services. Cybersecurity is a massive issue that is becoming relevant for us. So that's an area we will be providing services. And the last but not the least is our own data centers, where we are housing a lot of digital players. But am I doing everything myself? I am dealing with the customer facing side myself. At the back, there are a lot of partnerships. I believe in solid partnerships because there are people out there who can do stuff significantly better than we can do. So we have Palo Alto Networks providing the cybersecurity. Nikesh Arora, one of our Indian friends, as a CEO there. We are providing their services. We have many other companies which are plugged into us. We have very close relationship with Netflix, with Amazon Prime, with Hook, with Hotstar. And these are all the wonderful entertainment, streaming, and downloaded services that we deliver. We have our own music platforms. Wink is a very successful music platform. Airtel Thanks, which is a big property of Airtel, where you can go and pay bills, you can buy stuff, you can subscribe to various things is there. So we have started to get better. Can I take this whole equation up? The idea is, yes, our digital revenues should start to become meaningful in their own right in several $billion over the next few years. And thankfully, the valuations or the multiples that one generates in the digital business, because the capex is low, is significantly better than telecom, which is a very solid business, but a capital guzzling business and a spectrum guzzling business every year will be a good combination to have in the group.
Yeah. Sunil, just stepping a little bit away maybe from telecom, lots of businesses when we talk to, depending on where you are, you're dealing with AI, blockchain, crypto, metaverse, OTTs. I mean, you yourself will be looking at 5G in different ways, different forms of NFTs, tech platforms that are coming. So what would be your advice to corporates as they're looking at, or entrepreneurs or budding, as you look at people who are dealing with so much of change around technology, which can fundamentally and radically shift business? Should they be creating separate set of something, or so that sorry, yes.
You have to make your own businesses talk to the current day and future. So, I mean, just take one example. Take Nykaa. I mean, that's a good example to have. What are they doing is selling beauty products which have been sold for long years, whether it was Imami as we were growing up or all the big ones, Estee Lauders and Lakme's and all that. It's been there. It's not that this is something that suddenly humanity has discovered that you can brighten your face and you can look good. And, so it's always been there. So what they did was a very clever technique to make people buy it at a good price point, deliver it well, and be able to choose it in the comfort of their homes, and more importantly, in privacy. When you go out and looking at the shops and the shelves and all that, if you're a young girl and you're looking at some cosmetics and all that, people around you are watching what you're picking up, what you're not taking. And the shopkeeper will try to sell you a particular thing. Here, you are in charge. You go through page by page, turn where you want to go, look at the product, look at the recommendations on social media for that particular product, and you start to buy it. And the back end, they organize their supply chain beautifully well. And as they got traction, they said, by the way, we'll create stores as well, so that people can also go and touch and feel and experience our stores. Similarly, if you go overseas, people like Barbara Strum, who are in the similar businesses, have tried to open up beauty clinics. You can walk down the Mount Street here and get a facial, and she will be actually exposing you to a product, and therefore you will end up buying the product. So I would say this example can be strapped onto many, many businesses where you need to become, relevant to the current needs, which is really younger, future generation, which does not, procure or shop like we used to do in our past. You see, things are dramatically altered. So any business that you have, are you making it relevant for current needs? And that means really the way people now approach merchandise. You need to be technology savvy. You need to have, massive tech backup and platform. You need to present yourself. Your UI and UX need to be very intuitive. You go to a site, if you struggle on it for more than 30, 40 seconds, you're going to abandon it. It needs to grab you. It needs to get you 2 clicks. Your job is done and you're out of the site and move on to something else. Now, this is where a lot of companies are struggling today and becoming less relevant. And those companies that will not embrace the changes that are required will suffer. As to the larger part, metaverse, I mean, this is now, when I talk to now Facebook or Google, the whole focus is shifted. It's metaverse now. And what's going to happen in metaverse is really up to your imagination. I mean, instead of our video talk just now, I could have been standing on a stage with a full hologram presented as a human being there and talking to everyone, and the world will change, And I'm just talking about one thing, but go beyond it. Robotic surgeries, drone management, supplying, goods on people's rooftop through a drone, autonomous cars. I mean, the list is endless. The new, if some of you have experienced the new virtual meeting rooms are, 5D now. I mean, I can talk to you just turning my head and you'll be sitting next to me. I've already experienced that. I've seen it. It's unbelievably powerful. So world will change.
Yeah. Sunil, I'll just quickly shift to, I know, an area of interest to you, but this is more around geopolitics. And again, from a future ready standpoint. So I would say starting from the Trump era, COVID, Ukraine war, this whole, we all lived in a world of globalization. And that was the walking in theme in any business, that you have to be super competitive. You focus on those things which you're really good on. And, you have a global supply chain and you build that out. Even if you look at India, you briefly touched upon this, Atmanirbhar, manufacturing in India, creating more domestic value chains. So as you look at future and as businesses are looking at getting future ready, in your view, should we be looking at a more deglobalized world? Should we be looking at a more globalized world? And also the leading question is, do you think the way businesses and politics engage, that dialogue will change because of these dynamics that are changing?
I was one of the vocal critic of Trump. I got slammed for that as well. I was the chairman of ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, which works very, very closely with WTO. We were in and out of WTO with B20, G20, OECD organizations. And, our view was the globalization must never be reversed. And the trigger for that started with Trump era.
Yeah.
If America started to say, it's good to say, make in America or, made in America, that is fine. But to say that I will shut out the world and start to be punitive on imports and I'll discourage things, calling corporations to say, move your factories from Mexico back to, the US, that part started to clearly worry me. And I must say, I was very vocal about it. But how wrong I was. That was not just the start. That was going to become the norm in the years to come. In the last 4 or 5 years, I'm afraid and sorry to say that things have dramatically changed. So what has happened here? From a global or globalized world, it's now becoming more self-reliant and trying to do as much as you can within your own country. And this was the norm in 70s and 80s. Restrictions were there, import duties were high, you couldn't move products, there were so many restrictions. Come WTO, we had a global order in which we said, you can make something very good here, supply to the world and have scale, and everybody can enjoy. Customer gets lower price, better quality. And that's how China developed. And unfortunately, we became concentrated in one country, which was not a democracy. Imagine if China would have been a democracy, I think this problem would have never occurred. Now, that is where I would say, if the world would have chosen India, and I always say the eagle at that time always sort of hovered around India, but landed in China. Hovered around India, landed in Vietnam. I think that was the global misfortune, and of course, bad for India. Had we got that opportunity when Kissinger was scouting around the world for global supply chains, I think world would have been in a better place. But today, to answer your point, I think we are going to have broken, blocks. We are going to have, I would say, trusted supply chains as opposed to global supply chains, and that's a big, massive shift that you're going to see. No more global supply chains, trusted supply chains, and if that means more pain, more cost, we'll suffer it. Look at what's happening in Europe. Germany is going to suffer 12% increase in its energy costs, but they're going to buy from the trusted sources and not go to the global source, which is the cheapest, which is already connected on the tap. They're going to go away. India is going to stop buying in a big way. We have stopped buying Chinese equipment for telecommunications, for example, and we have suffered the consequences of that, of price hikes, etc. The shortage of chips, which is affecting every industry, not just mine, whether it's automobile or component or consumer electronics, everybody's suffering. Prices are going up. Mobile smartphone prices are up 15, 20%, some cases 30, 40%, because chips are coming from China. Certainly that has gone into a huge problem. Same will happen with defense equipment. Large parts of Russian equipment, we don't realize, has components coming from a Western world, which is getting stopped. So unfortunately, I think globalization is over. Is it permanently over? I don't know. But when we see these trends, they are there for decades. They are not there for years. This is now gone for tens of years. The good news is India is a continent of consumers. We are not a small little country, which is not endowed with our own markets, our own resources. So we will be fine. And the second most important part is India also is a trusted source. So we must get tremendous tailwinds because of this shift. So in some sense, in a selfish way, as an Indian and somebody who's very proud of raising the Indian flag everywhere, it's going to be very, very good for us. India needs to play its cards well. So far, it's played it extremely well. It's balanced its geopolitics, and my own view is that supply chains will start to rest in places which have democracies, open societies, and that's where most of the procurements will happen. India will benefit. On the Ukraine-Russia war, unfortunately, my own assessment is slightly different. While I am a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, I have deep interest in politics. I serve on many global think tanks, which are heavily and rather only solely into geopolitics. My assessment is we are in for a very long war. This is not going to go away soon. And the end result, in my assessment, is going to be a very weakened Russian state.
And Sunil, we are coming to the close, so I'll just ask the last question. This is on ESG, the sustainability agenda. If you remember, maybe 2 years back when you went to Davos, suddenly from digital transformation, ESG had become the big thing. And I look at ESG in two aspects. One is obviously ESG as a business. And if you look at even India, and if you look at some of the largest groups, Reliance, Adani, and even Tata, so the amount of capital that they're allocating to some of those businesses, which are around environmental, whether it's solar, hydrogen, and others, is massive. So that is one aspect of this. And the question is, again, as organizations look at being future ready, in your view, what's the life cycle? How rapid do you think the change will be? And second, it's for any other organization. Has the Russia-Ukraine war dialed back a little bit on ESG, or do you think this process is going to start? Because again, people are talking about, energy, we need to do more on that. And suddenly you hear less, the voice levels on ESG seem to, at least from the outside, seem to have come down a bit. So wanted to get your perspective, at least as organizations look ahead.
So let's split the ESG in three parts. I think S and G is settled.
Yes, sir.
The social part and the governance part, there is no going back. It was always becoming important, and companies which are big and strong and listed, especially in very open environments and high quality environments like US, UK, and India, I would say, the governance part has become very strong. I mean, SEBI's own regulations have been absolutely outstanding to ensure that the companies are. In some sense, we also complain that they are going overboard, but they have taken care of the G part, the governance. And I tell you, we are an embodiment of that. We live that. We did things before they were mandated. On each front, we have done it before they were mandated. On social, I think that's, I would say, the social contract that you have with the society, with your employees, and all the stakeholders, your vendors and supply chain. Again, something that I can tell you, we embody that in the best possible way we can. Our industry in itself serves the communities in a way which enables them to lower their first part, which is environment. I mean, they don't need to travel as much. They can do virtual stuff like we are doing just now. They can digitize and carry bits and bytes on a network. So our business itself has a deep sustainable value for the society. So the S part, our employees are our partners, our employees are owners, our employees are extremely important for us. Our vendors and suppliers all live with a charter and a code of conduct that is best in class. So S and G, I would say all good companies will be in a good shape. The E part is where the focus is shifting very strongly. It was always climate change, climate agenda, carbon emissions, global warming, and that now is kind of captured into this ESG. That's an area which has suffered a little bit, because suddenly when you have Saudi not producing more oil because they don't want to be pushed into a corner to produce more oil because Russia is not able to export to the Western world. So suddenly people are saying, all right, produce as much coal as you can, fire up the thermal stations back in play. And many countries are firing their thermal production back. So yes, to some extent, there is going to be a setback to the environment agenda. But do keep one thing in mind, the capital allocation, and when you spoke about some large business houses now focusing on that, is going to be absolutely unforgiving of those who are not going to be jumping on this bandwagon. You can be into the fossil fuel based supply chain. You will suffer on the outcomes on your multiples in the stock market. Your financing will become more expensive or becoming less available. So you need to get focused there. But there will be industries who will say, we'll make a ton of money on doing this and we don't care about the others, so the equation is okay. Or there will be countries which have no choice but to step up their, at least temporarily, their fossil fuel based energy requirements, because they have no choice. They still need power, they need energy to fire up their communities and factories. So to that extent, I would say, again, it will be exigency rather than a choice. From the choice point of view, you need to now become extremely environment friendly. Companies like us, we are India's first telco to sign for the UN Compact. We have signed the SBTI, the Science Based Target Initiative Partnership. We are an active part of that. We have committed to 1.5 degrees of global warming limits. And importantly, that we will be carbon neutral in the next 10, 15 years.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks a lot, Sunil. I can see CV's face popping in and out, and Neerja also is getting restless. So I think we have exceeded our time limit, but it was great, as always, very informative and great to have this conversation. Thank
you,
so
Rajiv. Very much enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. Thank you, Rajiv. Excellent session.
Thanks.